All right, so welcome to another one for Al Cuerpo Boxing, to the body. So let's get with it, let's talk some boxing. I'm gonna probably do two videos, but this one, I wanna talk about the heavyweight division. I don't know if I want to decide on, I don't know how to title this video because my motive is to see what are the best fights for David Benavidez at heavyweight. But at the same time, for me, the boogeyman right now, I guess you could say in all of boxing, but more so heavyweight, would be Moses Atauma. Atauma. That's a bad kid, man. That's a bad kid. 21 years old, has about 13 or 12 KOs. He's very athletic, man. And athleticism is a key point to talk about what is best for David Benavidez, or comparing the guys between cruiser and heavyweight, okay? Because one thing that David Benavidez has to his skill set is his athleticism. Not so much the range or stance in legs, but I want to say David has amazing athleticism on the upper torso and above. Very, very fast kid. So, where do we begin? So, I believe Moses Atauma is ranked, he's obviously in the top 10, man. 21 years old, top 10. I think he's like ranked 5 or 6 in the ring list. For me, I want to go off the ring list, okay? Pound for pound, as far as the heavyweight division. As you guys know, I already did a video, and the news is circulating that Turki wants Alexander Usyk versus David Benavidez. That's a good fight, man. That's a good fight. It's a fight for the fans. But I've said this before, even before David Benavidez talks, that for me, Moses Atauma, and I said this, I mean, maybe right now Frank Warren is carefully grooming the kid for better fights. But let's see, about 12 KOs at 21 years of age. I think proportionally, by the time he's like 25 or 26, he'll have about the 22 KO range. That's pretty good, man. Or 20 KOs, more or less. Still, that's very good for that age. Right, in comparison, for a 26-year-old to have that amount of KOs, surpasses where I say close to maybe Tyson Fury right now, but Fury's older. You got the other guys like Fabio Wardley, Usyk, of course, Daniel Dubois there. I believe even Hrgovic is there, but I don't know. For me, if I had to bet, guys, I would have Moses Atauma beating all those guys right now, including Usyk, okay? More so because Usyk's already aged, and, you know, styles make fights. But the reason why, for me, the most dangerous fight for Benavidez would be a guy like Moses Atauma, or I guess any fighter, okay? Any fighter that's not really focused on a boxing from the outside skill set. Guys like Richard Torres, maybe even Andy Ruiz, Murat Gassiev. That would be a good fight, man. I would love to see that fight. Murat Gassiev versus David Benavidez at heavyweight. Because Gassiev is a bigger version than Beterbiev, in my opinion. Amazing body puncher, man. Power on both hands. Dangerous fighter, Murat Gassiev. That would be actually a good fight for David Benavidez. If David Benavidez wanted to prove something that he could hang at heavyweight, go for a fight with Murat Gassiev. Because Murat Gassiev isn't as wild as an Andy Ruiz or Richard Torres, but he's definitely in the dangerous realm, you know. As a matter of fact, guys, I would right now pick Zhilei Zhang, even though he got stopped by Caballel, but I would have Zhang actually possibly stopping a guy like David Benavidez. And we'll get to that, because again, I'm confused here on how to title this, because I want to talk about Atauma and David Benavidez. Or as a matter of fact, let's just intertwine both of these guys, okay? But if I were David Benavidez's camp, if Turki for some odd or crazy reason said, yo, I want to see Benavidez versus Moses Atauma, don't take that fight, David. Don't take it, man. That's dangerous. So let me quickly brush up on Atama. I think Atama, when he was like 19 or at 20, about a year and a half ago, they were matching him up with Tyson as far as the age to become champion. Not so much about the power. Maybe the power could be compared, but different styles, of course. Tyson has a more of a planted power, more inside fighter, power on both hands, of course, and the way Tyson would slug. He slugs haymakers on the inside and very effectively, man. Old school, very, very old school. Whereas Moses Atama, he's a very intelligent range fighter, Even more importantly, again, the athleticism, the fact that he's a southpaw. I really like Moses Atama, and I've been saying that for about a year. I said, watch out for Atama. Very, very dangerous kid. Very athletic, guys. Super athletic. So right now, if I had to bet, I would have Atama beating everybody at heavyweight. Believe it or not, I think it's his time. I don't know his background. He looks like he's mixed. Probably like parents. One of them's black, the other one's white. I think. If I'm not, I apologize. I don't mean to offend anybody, but not do genetics play a role? Of course they play a role in boxing, but that's my point of view on Moses Atama. Okay, and I like Atama because Atama, for a heavyweight and a southpaw, age-wise, well, he's way younger than Boots Ennis, but the comparison I want to make is he reminds me of a Boots Ennis, where he'll probe, get a feel out with his jab, but then he strikes the body with that crossing left hand, because he's a southpaw. He'll chop you to the body with that long range straight left cross to the body. So when I imagine that style against David Benavidez, I would imagine Atama just piecing up David little by little, just pretty much breaking David down to the body. If you guys know what I mean, just look at Atama's style. He's big, man. The kid's like 240. So I think right now David is not ready for those type of physiques if he were to go to heavyweight. Nah, dangerous, guys, dangerous. And again, guys, I got like a guy like Zhilei Zhang. Because remember, Zhilei Zhang, people forget, he clipped Caballel, man. And Caballel got lucky too, but Caballel took a nasty left, and he got dropped, man. He got dropped. But props to Caballel for getting back and winning that fight. Just massive onslaught, body puncher. As a matter of fact, I mean, even Ait Caballel, he would give David problems. I would say that it goes the full 12. Who knows about that? Maybe split decision. I don't know, but that's that right now. You guys, I really recommend check out Moses Atama. It's his time to be champion. He'll probably be a champion by the time he's 22 years old. So check out Moses Atama, rising star from the UK. He's the goods, guys. He's the goods. Last fight, I guess he starched Jermaine Franklin. Power, man. Power on both hands. I remember in one round, the early rounds, he clipped Franklin with a right hook, and it was kind of like a grazing right hook, but he staggered him, man. And Franklin's a big kid, man. He's a big boy. I should say kid. He's a big guy. And then before that, he stopped, what's his name? Dillian White, man. So again, guys, Moses Atama, Benavidez, if you're thinking about any narrative with heavyweight, stay away from Moses Atama, David. Don't go in that realm. If you were to do that, man, props to you, but you definitely got to bulk up. Strength and conditioning is important for David if he were to go to heavyweight. What's the compromise? Yeah, he's gonna slow down in speed, because David is very, very thin shoulder. His deltoids are very thin, kind of like mine. But to bang with dudes and to try and play rope-a-dope, that's a very dangerous thing for David to do at heavyweight. So again, guys, even like a Richard Torres, who I believe is like 25 or 26, he would give David problems too, because again, these are fighters and David likes to fight. Or who knows, David might change up the style against a pressure fighter, right? Richard Torres, again, Andy Ruiz. By the way, these guys are Mexican too. Andy Ruiz is a paisa, he's Mexican. Richard Torres, I believe it or not, also Mexican-American. Man, that's some interesting fights, man, for David Benavidez, because right now David Benavidez has stole the shine for the moment, this Mexicanism aura, anywhere from cruiserweight into heavyweight. And I mentioned heavyweight because Turki Al-Sheikh mentioned heavyweight. Alexander Usyk, of course, is in that mix, but I think we need to hit the brakes realistically. So what else? So yeah, I mean, for me, Moses Atama reminds me a lot of a Jerome Boots Ennis, but a heavyweight version of that, bigger, heftier. Geronda, of course, is a better switch hitter than Moses Atama. But again, guys, we can't be choosers. But as far as southpaws go, for me, the best are Usyk and Moses Atama for southpaws at heavyweight, man. So, what else we got? So let's go back to David Benavidez now. David Benavidez, if he were to go to heavyweight, he needs to acclimate about 20 pounds of upper torso mass, because David can take shots to the body. Unfortunately, we didn't see that with Zurdo Ramirez. Zurdo Ramirez didn't even really attack David to the body. Very, very bad game plan from Zurdo Ramirez. Even though I like the fight, David proved a lot. And again, that's really good because David has risen his value. The key word is value. David Benavidez has risen his value in the boxing world. And everybody's talking about him now. It's good. It's good for David. At the same time, it becomes kind of a pressure. Okay, because now he has to, if they're comparing Usyk with David, that means David, for some fans, they might see, as I'm mentioning right now, guys like Andy Ruiz, Atama, Richard Torres, and I think people have mentioned Richard Torres before, but again, guys, David is just barely hitting cruisers, so maybe that's just jumping the gun. On the flip side of that, or the realistic point of view, is that David Benavidez, man, on fight night, he's already like 210, man, when he's fighting a cruiser. So David Benavidez, it's going to be very interesting for him to acclimate at heavyweight. Throughout his career, he's probably been fighting cruisers for the most part his entire career. Perhaps maybe some heavyweights too, but not elite level heavyweights that would prep him up for the heavyweight division. Because most of the top tier heavyweights, if you look at the pound for pound list of heavyweights right now, naturally, these guys are a lot heavier than David. They're just bigger, broad-shouldered. They're bigger than him. And that's kind of like maybe one negative downside for David's effective ability to be at heavyweight. Just David, to me, is more of a natural cruiserweight. A cruiserweight that's very light and speedy for light heavyweight. And a cruiserweight that was very well groomed to try and hit 168. Teams like Snack, when David was a little younger, because before he even was with Snack, he could hit 168. Again, youth helps you guys. Youth helps you a lot. And we might as well talk about Xander Zayas and Jerome Boots Ennis, because youth makes a big difference in fights, man. It's definitely going to help you. I remember when Canelo fought Floyd, Canelo was 22 or 23. I don't remember, man, but it was because of the youth that Canelo was even able to go 12 rounds with Floyd Mayweather, because in that particular fight, Canelo Alvarez was mad drained, man. That probably the thinnest ever we've seen Canelo drained. Maybe even when he was trying to make 155 for Liam Smith, right? One of the Smith brothers, and Amir Khan. Very, very thin, man, in those weigh-ins, and at that time Canelo at best was like a 160, maybe even like a 168. Doesn't really rehydrate that much compared to like middleweights, because middleweights that are draining a lot, they're going to rehydrate to 170 or close to 170. Okay, and of course, Canelo's physique is very heavy set. But sorry, we just went into a tangent, but I might as well just jump into Xander Zayas and Boots Ennis. So Xander Zayas and Boots Ennis right now, I'm leaning towards Boots to win this fight. And I'm even thinking that Boots might actually stop Xander Zayas. He might actually stop Xander Zayas late in the fight. If not that, I still got Boots winning by decision. What I would advise Zayas, two things. As far as technique, focus on your 1-2s. Because one thing I like about Xander Zayas is that when he follows up with his right hand, it's very short, it's quick, and it's effective. And Xander Zayas can do that in 12 rounds. So because of his youth. So do that, because at times, Boots, he does shell up. He's going to get tired, all right? So that's one thing that Xander Zayas should focus on. Another thing, though, as far as the bettors, one thing you got going for you as far as Zayas, he's taking some hard shots, man. Especially that fight he did with Chino Perez, right? With Chino Garcia, I forgot his name. But he took some nasty right hands, man, from Chino Perez, and that actually proved something with Zayas's chin. So Zayas, I think, if anything, it's gonna go late, or unfortunately, he might get stopped by Boots Ennis, because Boots, yeah, he has speed, he's crafty. Boots has way more versatility and dynamics with uppercuts. So even though I want Zayas, here's what I want Zayas to do, but he's got to be careful. I want Zayas in the second half of the fight. He needs to have, or let's just begin with the first half. I'm jumping here. What we want to do is let's take advantage of the youth. So let's take Boots 12 rounds. And by the way, I'll get to the Boots. When I mean we, I'm just saying for the game plan for either or. We're going to have to tire out Boots, because Boots is well conditioned. He's a switch hitter. He's going to have volume punching, and that's going to look good to the judges. So that's one thing that Zayas got to watch out for. He has to make sure he's ready for that ratio of exchanges for the scores whenever the rounds end. Okay, so maybe for the first half, I can see Boots having a lot of success stylistically. And so therefore now let's focus on the second part of the fight. Let's have Boots commit to a lot of volume punching. So that way, when the time comes to round 7, that's when you're going to want to press the gas and try and press Boots to the ropes. That's what Zayas got to do. On top of that, have, bait. Okay, set up shots that's going to have Boots miss a lot. And then part of that, you're going to have to take him to the ropes. Again, but what he's got to be careful with is Boots's uppercuts, man, because Boots is really, really, really good with uppercuts. Stylistically, I love it. He can do it switch hitting on either hand with his uppercuts. But when he's committing to that, that's when Xander Zayas is going to have to be very alert on timing a counterpunch on those uppercuts, okay? A lot of it is pairing those uppercuts, blocking those shots at close range so that way you can block it, There's ways to do it. And at the same time, I think Zayas is going to have to, duck and evade. So one thing is that Zayas, when he follows up with his 1-2, when Zayas throws the second right, all right, on the lead up to 1-2, Zayas is going to have to make a habit to, duck to his left. Why? Duck to the left, because that's where that counter is going to come from Boots. Either an uppercut or in a straight right. Again, Boots is very crafty, man, and he's a switch hitter. So for me, the way that Zayas can win this fight is he has to have Boots commit to a lot of action, a lot of volume, and that's going to eventually tire him out. Again, Zayas is younger. He's going to be bigger. He can take punches, man, as he proved it with Chino Perez. So it's going to be a close fight, but if it's not going to go 12, I don't know, man. Right now, I'm picking Boots to stop Zayas in the later rounds. Why, guys? Because I just think Boots is going to figure him out. He's going to have Zayas commit on some mistakes, and Zayas is going to take too much damage in the later rounds. And who knows? We'll see. But I might change my mind. We'll see as the time goes. So that's what I have right now. On top of that, guys, since we're talking about 154, for me, guys, and too bad I would rather make another video on this, but I'm going to keep it just straight. We'll keep it at 154. For me, guys, the most dangerous fighter right now at 154, proven, and I think he could take out everybody, even Virgil Ortiz. But Virgil Ortiz is going to get a pass right now because, unfortunately, he's got litigation going on. But the most dangerous fighter, and a guy that I believe he would even stop Boots Ennis, is the towering inferno, Sebastian Fundora. I like Fundora a lot. For me, the reason why Fundora is probably one of the most dangerous fighters in boxing, he is a master at controlling range and distance. There's two parts as far as distance controlling in boxing. There's evasive distance, defensive distance, right? Evade, a lot of footwork. And what I mean is, like, if you're a challenger to go against Fundora, you might have a shot with footwork. For example, Boots Ennis might have better effectiveness with footwork and evasion than what Keith Thurman should have done. But again, Keith Thurman, a bit over the hill. I didn't expect Keith Thurman to have a performance like this against Sebastian Fundora. I was rooting for Thurman because of the variables, because he's been a long layoff, he's been injured. He was obviously the underdog, and I wanted to see if we could have a miracle with the ring IQ, old school Keith Thurman, if he could have the movement to outpoint, not stop, obviously to outpoint, maybe to a close decision against Sebastian Fundora. On the flip side of that, I really like the way Fundora he pieced up Keith Thurman nasty, man. And that's good, because that performance is how we can evaluate Fundora here forward in the future from 154 to 160. Fundora could easily fight at 175. If he was properly conditioned with strength to fight at 175, he could do it. A bulked up Fundora. Kind of similar to like a David Benavidez, right? David going heavyweight. It's very special and calculated calibration for upper mass power if he wants to fight guys at heavyweight. I'm speaking of David Benavidez, and again, the same thing with Sebastian Fundora, to fight guys at light heavyweight, if anything. But guys, I could just see what makes Sebastian Fundora very dangerous is he knows the range. So this much, let's say like this much distance is the margin of error that Sebastian Fundora can play with, right? Because eventually if you're fighting Sebastian Fundora, you're gonna have to make attempts. You're gonna have to make risky attempts offensively. And how are you gonna catch Fundora from the outside? You know, you gotta commit to close range. Whether it's your jab, a long probing cross to the body, it's very hard at this stage right now to outpoint Sebastian Fundora. And the reason why, what was his name? El Balazo, right? El Bala Mendoza. Brian Mendoza, who is the only guy to stop Fundora. He actually got lucky with that hook. Bam! Nasty shot. Fundora, right, instinctively was still standing, but what Fundora should have done, he should have taken a knee. He couldn't right now, because at that moment when he took that mean hook to the face, he was just staggered. He couldn't respond. And of course, Mendoza followed up with another mean uppercut or another hook. I can't remember which it was, but after that, it was over. The brain is just scrambled, it's smashed, and Fundora couldn't get up from that. But I kid you not, if Fundora had hit the canvas on that first shot, that 10 count would have probably given Fundora some time to recover, maybe even clinch until the round was over, and it could have been another outcome. As a matter of fact, I would bet that if that happened, I would still pick Fundora to win that fight. But Mendoza, you know, when a guy is staggered, hey man, you got to go for it. Go for that stoppage, and Mendoza did a very good sequential follow-up to stop Fundora with that other follow-up KO punch, if you will, right? TKO punch. So anyways, to do that though, again, is very, very hard for anybody to achieve. I think the other guy that had effectiveness to do that was, what's his name? Erickson Lubin, right? He has some effectiveness, but Lubin took so much damage in that fight, and we saw the outcome. Of course, Fundora won the fight. But right now, given the momentum of all these fights, I think just Fundora is an unstoppable machine. And the way, again, he's very dangerous. He knew Thurman's position in every instance of those rounds, and Thurman couldn't do anything about it, you know? Thurman more heftier. You would have expected Thurman to do more footwork, right? To you know, circle around the ring, kind of like the way Amir Khan. Amir Khan is like the last great boxer. I can't even call Khan a boxer puncher because he's not a puncher, but pure boxer with his movement. Ironically, we're talking about 154. So as far as movement, maybe Xander Zayas could have some effectiveness against Fundora, or a more updated version of Keith Thurman. But prime Keith Thurman, old school Keith Thurman, was very nice to watch because he really liked to use movement around the ring. But again, fast forward to the Thurman today, he was full at 154, and every time, even when Fundora touched him, any part of the body, or when Thurman was shelled up, there's just too much power, man. That torque, that momentum from Fundora's punches, right? It's like a bat, man. It's like Babe Ruth with a skinny bat. That's what Fundora is, technically speaking, or that's probably the best analogy one could make, all right? With lanky fighters that are crafty too, because Fundora is a dangerous southpaw, but if he clips you with his left hand and of course the right hook, a southpaw's right hook is very dangerous, man. It's kind of like my style. I like it. I got a lot of power with my right, and I like being Saudi. But Fundora was able to tag Thurman at any close range distance because we saw Thurman was trying to clip him the same way Mendoza was doing. Thurman was trying to find his timing. But Fundora knew this. He had planned it. He knew that Thurman was going to try and go for a hook. He didn't fall for it. And of course, Fundora had a very intelligent fight. And he just, it was just too much for Keith Thurman. So right now, I got Fundora. If Virgil Ortiz were to get back to the mix, I actually have Fundora beating Virgil Ortiz, probably by decision. Fundora against, let's see, maybe Brandon Adams, I've got Fundora. Fundora against Xander Zayas, I got Fundora. I'll go back to that in a bit. Fundora against Jerome Boots Innes, I got Fundora stopping Boots. Fundora's very, very strong, man. He's a very strong, lanky fighter that he's going to catch all these guys. No matter how crafty they are with defense, he's going to catch them. And he's got the long-ranged arm distance to tag them even by points. All these guys can shut up and do what they want defensively and evade. But to the judges, when they see that, it's going to be, every round's going to be towards Fundora's favor. Now, as far as, what was I getting at? Zayas, maybe. Zayas, let me talk about this a bit. All right, and I think this is a bit of the PBC manipulation. If you guys remember Fundora and Zayas, when those negotiations fell through, that there was like a rehydration limit, it's not so much that, obviously there's an advantage, but it's also like how would you say, an insulting negotiation tactic to have them just stir away from the fight, even though he vacated, right, the WBO. But people forget that when you put a stipulation like that, like a rehydration clause, it's not so much that Xander Zayas is the only one to do it. No, it means that Fundora has to do it also. Fans forget about that. So Fundora would also be hindered. But here's the catch. Physiques. Rehydration physiques is different between lanky fighters. This is a different chemistry in bodies. That's why when I say PBC, that's how, in my opinion, Benavidez has had so much success over the years, because when he would rehydrate from 168, it doesn't matter the morning of the 10 to 10 pound morning rule. Not that David would have to worry about that, or who knows, maybe there was some like non-disclosure agreements in his fights that PBC was able to do that the fighters could never talk about, right? You guys get it, PBC, Fundora, Benavidez, and whatever, it's the fight game. I like it. If you can stipulate that, hey man, it's to your favor. But I think that, I'll talk about that in the future as far as like the Benavidez thing, but Fundora, and keep in mind, Fundora and Benavidez, they sparred, man, and Fundora is actually a lot taller than Benavidez. But again, guys, as far as Xander Zayas, if they did do that fight, and let's say hypothetically they did do the 10-pound rehydration limit, Fundora would still be way heavier on fight night, and they would still be down. I would still pick Fundora to win that fight, they themselves. But because the PBC has a game plan for Fundora, they can sell him. I think he's like Cuban and Mexican, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if he's half and half or he's pure Cuban. I don't remember, man. But Fundora is being carefully groomed in the PBC roster because they can conserve him for 160, 168, even 175. So Fundora right now, Sebastian Fundora is a very good commodity for the PBC. You know, for example, Fundora versus Diego Pacheco, that would be a great fight. Fundora versus Hamza Shiraz, that would be a very good fight, man. Don't get confused. Even though Sebastian looks very thin at 154, that ring IQ, he can bang with those guys at 168, no problem. Fundora is a dangerous fighter, man. So again, Fundora at 154, for me personally, Fundora is the top dog. Nobody's beating him at 154 at this point. If he were to do the rematch with Bala Mendoza, I would still pick him to stop Mendoza this time around. He would adjust for that. In my opinion, he would adjust. So anyways, that's Sebastian Fundora at 154. I'm happy that I can consolidate all of these so that I don't got to do more than one video. But so anyways, we covered Sebastian Fundora. I got that out of the way. I think he's a top dog at 154. He'll beat everybody at 154, man. Sorry for you guys to hear that, but I think he stops Zayas Virgil Ortiz, Boots Ennis, all those guys, man. Boachuk, no problem. No problem. Speaking of then, I shouldn't be a hypocrite because I always like guys to move up and challenge. If that's the case, Sebastian Fundora should already go to 160. I got to keep it 100. You guys know me. I like that. I like challenges going northbound. For those of you that know me, and I get credits in the boxing circuits, we're talking about debates, but if there's no challenge for you at a certain division, you got to go up in weight, man. You know? Again, guys, that's why I've always been optimistic about David. He's a natural cruiser, guys. He's a natural cruiser, but he's never really acclimated to heavyweight by design. Because you got to be careful. Once you start pumping them muscles, then it's gonna hinder your calibration to stay at the lower weight. So that's why David Benavidez, he's amazing with speed, his physique. Benavidez got really good genetics to stay where he is right now. But that can be altered once you start pumping up weights to go higher, right? So that's the tragedy between Benavidez right now. If Benavidez wants to go to heavyweight, he's gonna have to bulk up, and that's gonna affect speed. It may be to his favor as far as power, but guys, man, guys that are about 230 and above that walk around easily and that are acclimated to that weight, have been sparring heavyweight their whole life, or at least for the last 15 years, I would say that Moses Atama or like Richard Torres, those guys are very, very hard for David Benavidez, man. So that's that. So do we want Benavidez versus Usyk? Absolutely, absolutely. By the way, I got Atama stopping Usyk too, man. I just think Atama's too much. I'm kind of like going back and forth because I started this video talking about Atama and Benavidez, but hey, man, that's the truth right now, is that Atama, they should be better marketing for him. And that's probably Queensberry, Frank Warren's role. They got to do that more. Maybe they're not in a rush. He's 21 years old. I think he'll be champion by 22. He'll beat guys like Dubois and Fabio Wardley. So that's a good thing right now for the UK. I think a rising star. As far as punching power, I think the hardest hitters at heavyweight right now would be Anthony Joshua, Moses Atama, of course, Cabello as far as body punching. And that's about it, man. Hopefully we might get Atama versus Tyson Fury. That would be an interesting fight. That would be a hard fight for Atama too, because Fury, he's elusive, he's got range control, and Atama's gonna commit more for offensive onslaughts than Usyk would. Usyk's more of a calculated counterpuncher, and he's gonna look for those openings against anybody. So we covered, let's see, 154. I got Fundora stopping all those guys at 154. And then let's go back a bit about Boots and Xander Zayas. I think I already went over that. For Zayas, use your youth. You're going to have to tire out Boots Ennis. Have Boots Ennis commit to combination punching. Have him commit to body punching, and just make sure you shell up the right way and watch out for Boots' uppercut. Because for me, Boots' bread and butter is switch hitting uppercuts and luring you to the ropes, or he'll lure you to the ropes. You know, he'll have you going to the ropes. Again, Xander Zayas is bigger than most of Boots Ennis' opponents, so it's going to be interesting, guys. So anyways, I covered all those guys. Who knows how I'll title this and how I'll do the thumbnail, but I'm glad I got all these guys on there, man. So let me know what you guys think, man. Who do you want to see David fight next? Another Mexican-American in Richard Torres, or Andy Ruiz? Maybe I want to see that Garcia fight. That's good for David Benavidez. Or do you want David to focus back down to 175 and cruiser? Again, guys, David has a lot of good options. I said that many times. I said it before. I said the same thing for Jay Opataya. Jay Opataya's got good options. He could stay at cruiser. He could help Zuffa Boxing evolve, and he can get some more filler fights until the time comes when they can make proper negotiations if there's going to be a concession between either Zuffa Boxing and PBC to get the Benavidez fight if he wants to stay at cruiser. And then I guess we'll finish off with David Benavidez. Maybe he can go back to 175. I will give credit to David Benavidez if he can even do that. I think he can, because again, David is not really heavy, broad-shouldered. So David has really good options, man. So anyways, that's what I got for this one. For Al Cuerpo Boxing, to the body. And I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.